Right. Hi, everybody. Happy Mother's Day. Happy Friday. I think this is working. I, I was trying really hard to figure out technology. Anyway, those of you who know me know that this is, I don't know, you'd think I would have it by now, right? Anyway, welcome everybody. Oh my gosh, it's springtime and it's Mother's Day, and I'm going to talk about mom shaming today. Shame on me for talking about such a hard thing on Mother's Day, but I feel like it's relevant, and I just wanted to reach out and say hello. Haven't been doing a lot of the Facebook Lives lately. I've been kind of just taking a step back and you know, taking care of a lot of clients and processing a lot of what's going on right now with COVID. It's a lot. So let me know if you're here. I'd love to know that you're watching. It just means so much to me. Say hello, ask me a question if you have any questions about, or thoughts, comments about what it means, what mom shaming's about. But let me like back up a little bit for those of you who don't know. Um, I have four grown children, amazing humans, and three grandchildren. And my daughter Elizabeth and I have been doing Moms in Real Life, and she couldn't join me today because she's got an emergency, not emergency, but a student. She's a school psychologist that needed intervention or something today. So anyway, so I'm flying solo, but it's been really fun working with her because her and I are from different generations of moms, but we're finding similar things, which is moms not feeling good enough. And when I did my doctoral dissertation about 20 years ago, 20 some years ago, um, I had been doing parent education and hearing a lot of stories about women not feeling good enough as moms. It just seemed to be a phenomenon. And so I was curious because Donald Winnicott, a well known child psychologist back in the day, talked about the good enough mother and what does it mean to be good enough. And what I found in my literature is good enough still implies an ideal of perfection. And so after I finished my dissertation, my doctoral committee had said to me, this is really good. Um, you ought to do workshops, you ought to write a book. And so I've been plugging along, doing that now for 20 some years. And and like I said, I'm so grateful to be working with my daughter, Elizabeth Herman, who's also a parent coach and a school psychologist, and seeing that we still have a long way to go. So here's the book that came from the research. Living in the Shadow of the Too-Good Mother Archetype reveals the truth about being a good enough mother and dispels the myth of being a perfect parent. Um, yeah, so here's where we are today in the middle of COVID, in the middle of a lot of stress. And what we know now when we have stress in the body is it creates a fear response in the nervous system. And so we act in all kinds of ways, that sometimes we don't understand. I was just listening to Brene Brown interview Bruce Perry and Oprah about on our podcast about their new book, which is What Happened to You. And I love Bruce Perry's work because he was a pioneer in looking at childhood trauma and how it affects us for our lifetimes. And so the question they ask is what happened to you, not what's wrong with you, because when we have certain reactions to things, we're just seeking connection, as Linda Hartling says in her study of connection. We either isolate, we people please and overgive, and Oprah was talking about that with some of her reactions to her trauma, or we act out and we get mean and we fight, and so Carl Jung talked about the shadow. So that's why, the book is about the shadow of the Too-Good Mother archetype. So the shadow is the places where um, we hide things that we are afraid it might be bad. And so what I found is this ideal perfectionism that moms have is creates so much anxiety and creates this fear response and creates these different reactions. So if we yell at our kids, or if we don't feel like we're really there for our kids, or we overdo, we're the shadow aspects of that need to be a perfect mom or a too good mom, as I call it in my work, is is a reaction to the stress and the fear. So windows open, and here goes the traffic today. It's a beautiful day outside. Sorry about that. That's life, right? There's always things happening. So anyway, I wanted to speak to mom shaming today because that's one of those reactions. That's one of those things that we do. We are judging other people. So I would say that's the moving, the third one I mentioned, the moving against. It's being kind of mean and nasty, and it's judgmental. And judgment, when we judge other people, it's a defense against our own inner shame. And so there's so much mom shaming that goes on in so many ways. And isn't it like a way to deflect from what we are feeling as women as not being enough? And we don't know quite what to do with that yet, because it's so much in our unconscious, it's so much in the shadow. So the book is really about digging that up and making and bringing it to consciousness, illuminating that shadow, which is, by the way, the exciting news. It's a workbook I'm working on called Illuminating the Shadow. Well, it was called Illuminating the Shadow. It's the subtitle now. It's Authentic Mothering, Illuminating the Shadow of the Too-Good Mother. And it's for moms of all ages, because I have done workshops through the years on the subjects and the themes that came up in the book. And I really find that what we have to do in order to create change is really pay attention to what's happening in our bodies around this feeling of not being good enough. So I am hoping there's some people out there. Nobody's saying hello, so say hello if you're here. I see two people. Maybe there, maybe not. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was me. Click too many times to go live. So anyway, I'm watching myself. That's hilarious. Anyway, my techie shame just came out there big time. Okay. So anyway, so what is mom? So mom shaming, we look at like the movie like Bad Moms. I always talk about that, and I talk about how, the way they overcame this feeling like they weren't a good mother is they went and they partied and they drank. And that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about having these really, really hard conversations. And so the book has has thought questions at the end of each chapter. The different themes that came up, I'll tell you, were unrealistic expectations, judgment, and guilt. And I call that chapter the Martha Stewart complex because, what I did was I interviewed some moms, and they were telling me stories, and one of the moms said it's the Martha Stewart complex. And I think that this whole idea, and it was before Martha Stewart went to jail. Now she's back out, and she's back in the world doing her thing. But that idea that I have to meet this ideal and it's an unrealistic expectation. We keep going and going and going. And so a lot of times, the shame response to not being able to keep up with those expectations is to like look at other mothers and talk about them, or, point the finger. Back in the day when I was, raising kids, it was in the 80s, 90s, well, 80s really. Well, to be honest, that's how old I am. Yeah. It was when women were really getting back full force into the workplace. And so there was a lot of shame around moms who were staying at home. The stay at home moms were shaming the mothers who worked outside of the house, just because they're all trying to feel okay about their choices. And the truth is, it really is okay, whatever we choose to do. We have to decide what's right for us, which is, again, that authentic mothering piece that authenticity architects, my work developed out of this research and this, what is authentic for me and how do I do it. And I think right now with the pandemic, and especially going back into, coming out of our caves and going back into life, I find it's especially hard because the roles are so undefined right now, and there's still a lot of uncertainty about the virus, and there's still a lot of uncertainty about how people are going to do work-life balance, because it went from trying to juggle it all before COVID to then juggling it in the home with COVID, and now how do we create those boundaries and balance, in the as we re-enter life to some degree, more than we have in the past year. And it's tricky. And it brings up again that stress and that fear response. So, um, yeah. So, breathe. Um, is the first thing to do. And I know when we're in stress, sometimes it's even hard to do that, but it's really important to take a deep breath in and just find some sense of body safety inside yourself and be really present in the moment. And at the beginning of COVID, I used to talk about the fantastic five, find five things that are happening right now that, are comfortable. And like today, I can hear the birds singing and the breeze blowing and the things that are happening, the bright blue sky, things that are happening that are going well. We really want to pay attention to that because the body can't differentiate time and trauma and the degree and when and where. And so those of us who've had trauma, and I think we all have to some degree, big and little traumas, they are all getting activated. They've been activated through the pandemic, and they're really um, present. And so mom shaming is one of those reactions. Stephen Porges, who discovered the evolution of the nervous system and polyvagal theory and the importance of relationship and connection in order to feel emotionally safe, says that every action is a reaction seeking safety and survival. So, what we're seeking is emotional safety. Am I worthy? As Brene Brown calls it, the definition of shame is that feeling unworthy of love and belonging. And so, am I worthy of love and belonging? Am I a good mom? And how do I know that, and be good to myself and be good to other moms too? And I think that's really the key is how can we, kind of lighten up on ourselves a little bit, which is what, I write about in the book, right? So the chapter of unrealistic expectations, judgment, and guilt. Let me see if there's a little nugget in there that might be relevant to mom shaming, that I could share with you. This book was published in 2014. It was my first book. Um, I've already talked about naming the. So, unrealistic expectations, judgment, and guilt run rampant in the shadow of the Too-Good Mother. Women often compare themselves to other mothers and feel guilty when they fall short of meeting such unrealistic expectations. I recently read a survey that reported 92% of mothers sometimes feeling envious of other mothers. This 92% was divided into the following categories: 32% are envious of other mothers' organized life, 29% are envious of the looks of other mothers, 20% are envious of other mothers' houses, 11% are envious of the way other mothers' children behave, and 8% are envious of other mothers' husbands. And this was a long time. Well, I don't know. I guess I did maybe 10 years ago, and I'm not sure it's changed all that much. Um, so and then the Shriver report was something that I used, which was amazing. Maria Shriver and the Center for Women, Center for Women or something, um, did all kinds of research on the state of women and created the Shriver Report. And one of the articles in there by Susan Douglas identifies contradictions such as women's occupations on television that bear scant resemblance to the jobs women actually hold. Successful, attractive women journalists in front of the camera mask how vastly outnumbered women are by experts and pundits. Young women in America portrayed as shallow, catfighting sex objects, obsessed with appearances and shopping, and the dismissive coverage of powerful, successful women versus their real achievements. Now, of course, that has changed. Yes, we have a woman VP right now, yay. And a lot of really good things are happening for women right now, which is great. And I think we still have a really long way to go because we're trying to get out of these old patterns that have been going on really for thousands of years, which is the other thing I discovered in my research is the suppression of this feminine, this idea of what it means to be a woman and what it means to birth babies and be fertile and creative and intuitive and feeling. A lot of those things have been suppressed in the patriarchal culture. And so in the feminist movement, women tried to have power in a way that men have been having power for a long time. And I think what we're working towards is a balance of that. And that's why, I'm so into the Mary Magdalene. I did a Facebook Live on the Mary Magdalene. I'm still waiting to hear on the publisher on my Mary Magdalene card deck because I think it's really important to pay attention to what is it in this lost feminine. She was cut out of the story for thousands of years, but yet, we're discovering, in the Dead Sea Scrolls and other literature that she was most likely Jesus's wife and a priestess. So it's one of many historical ways we can see the archetype of the suppression of the feminine. One being the Inquisition in the 14th century, where women were tortured to the third degree until they admitted that they were witches. And then once they admitted that they were witches, they were killed for being witches. And, the witch hunts in Salem here in our country. And, it's caused women to be silent. And we know now we're carrying 14 generations of ancestral DNA. So it's so important to speak what's true. And it's also frightening, again, listening to Oprah and Bruce Perry today talk about, feeling emotionally safe and how hard it is to be vulnerable when we've been in trauma and we've been in situations that aren't safe. You can't just say to the body, oh, it's okay to be safe. Women, speak your truth, because historically that hasn't been safe. And a lot of times it's not safe. Let's look at what happened at the Capitol building and, listening to AOC talk about her experience, of, people almost being killed, and she's a woman who speaks her truth. So we have a long way to go. And I think it's important to pay attention to those unconscious responses and work with where's the body safety. So again, the Fantastic Five, come back into present moment. And it's really, it takes practice. That's why they call meditation a practice. And that's really what we're talking about here is a mindfulness practice of being really present in the moment. Let's see. So then the other theme was the oxygen mask, self-care and support systems, which Elizabeth and I talk about a lot. We have our course, Moms in Real Life, too, which is on my website. So if you haven't checked it out yet, we talk about a lot of this stuff, and you got videos and PowerPoints and meditations and all kinds of worksheets and things you can do to help excavate this whole mother, this authentic mother experience and feel better about yourself. And remembering the oxygen mask is so important. And that's what somebody said. That's where I got the title of a lot of these chapters from, is things that people had said in my interviews. So an all too common trait of mothers and caregivers is the overgiving of others and neglecting self-care. This can cause a woman to deplete herself, sometimes even to the point of becoming physically ill. Lacey, a 39-year-old mother of 4 children, ages 13, 11, 10, and 5, and Cammie, a 48-year-old mother of 3 children, ages 34, 20, and 17, both related this to the now familiar oxygen mask on an airplane example. When flying on an airplane, the flight attendant advises children to put on their oxygen mask before helping children in the case of emergency. Lacey believes that if you don't help yourself and get that oxygen on yourself, then you can't take care of the kids. What an excellent analogy for taking care of yourselves. When mothers recognize their own needs, they're much better equipped to meet the needs of their children. However, if the flight attendant did not tell parents to do this, mothers would most likely help their child first. What good are we to our children if we have no resources to pull from to keep our bodies functioning? Women often sacrifice beyond what's necessary to raise children. This can leave women feeling depleted, resentful, angry, and frustrated. And again, that goes into the shadow. So if I'm feeling resentful and angry and frustrated, but I'm trying to be a good mom, what do I do with all those feelings? And that's really important, is which takes us to another chapter, which is the paradox, like embracing paradox, that it's important to know that it's always both and. So parenting is a paradox of both and. So you have these amazing, beautiful humans, and you have these amazingly huge challenges and struggles and sorrows and joys that all happen at the same time. But we live in a culture that wants to cut off. We want to cut off the things that don't feel good. And so, yeah, we have to embrace that paradox. We take care of ourselves. We have to let go of unrealistic expectations. And the other chapter was unconditional love and letting go. Sometimes we hold on to our children because we created an identity of mother, and we lose our identity as a woman. And we need our children to be there for various reasons. And so once they launch and leave home, sometimes that can be really challenging. And I'm only going over a couple of these briefly just so you get an idea of the themes. But the last one is life choices, identity, and advocacy. So I think it's most of them. And that's really about advocating, women really speaking, and again, having a voice, and really, let's look at the statistics. Let's look at what's going on. Yay that the new administration is talking about equal pay for women. We've been screaming and hollering for that forever, and family leave, and support for children and families. I'm a big fan of that. I mean, children are our biggest natural resources. And yeah, we really need to advocate for ourselves and other people. And again, back to the come full circle with the mom shaming, that's why it's so important to support each other as mothers. We really have to come together and notice when we feel judgy about another mother, and maybe, again, instead of, what are you doing? What happened to you? What is this experience of not being good enough? And how can I help? How can we support one another? So what I'm working on is a workbook. I was hoping to have it for you today for Mother's Day, but I just didn't have enough time to do it. So I think what I'm going to do is plan a course, an interactive course this time. The courses online are all do on your own. But I think I want to do an interactive course where we can get together once a week, do a webinar, talk about the chapters in the workbook. And the workbook basically is teasing out all the themes that came out in my study and my research and my work with women. And so, yeah, I just want to say you're doing a good job, Mama. And, be good to yourself, because this is a hard time, Like I said, I haven't been doing that many Facebook Lives because I've been really supporting my clients and feeling really, really tired myself, because I feel like we're all bringing up so much unconscious material right now, and it's hard to know what to do with it and how to navigate it. So we really have to be gentle with ourselves. Find ways to find that mindfulness and the fantastic five, and give yourself credit. Like, what went right today? One of the really good exercises is the what went right. So at the end of the day, what went right today and what caused that? And write down what went right and what caused that. And you'll find that you did it, mama. You did some things today that were amazing. Another exercise that I had heard of a long time ago is to write down everything you do in a day. And, uh, it's amazing what we do because we don't realize. Because again, I think, here's my thought: the suppression of the feminine really is the suppression of homemaking, and tending the hearth and valuing, valuing, you know, cooking and cleaning and nurturing and being together in connection and relationship. And I'm not saying that I think women shouldn't work outside the home. I think women ought to have a choice of what is authentic for them, and keep in mind that those stay-at-home moms are doing big work and they need a lot of kudos. And those who are working outside the home need someone to help them with the big work that they don't have time to do because they're working outside the home. But that big work is valuable. And that's really, really important. I want everybody to get that. That work is valuable. Who's tending the hearth? Who's doing that work? Dads are stepping up, which is great. I also have a video with my friend Nick Kasovic, who is the CEO of the Dad Project, on the Moms in Real Life course, because he helps dads help moms. And of course, we have, I don't want to stereotype males and females, men and women, mothers, fathers, because we have co-parenting, same sex marriages, and again, it's sharing the roles, the household responsibilities, and realizing that they all have value. Time with our children and building connections is so valuable. And how do we juggle all the balls and have time to do that? And how do we hire people to help, supportive people? How do we afford that? I mean, and that's the tricky part, right? Is so trying to navigate um, how we can be supported in these valuable experiences. I'm sure I'm not going to be able to find it in the book, but I had this funny thing I saw somebody posted online about, all the things you do all day. Oh, here it is. I found it. Yay! This is just so funny. So, a man came home from work and found his 3 children outside, still in their pajamas, playing in the mud with empty food boxes and wrappers strewn all over the front yard. The door of his wife's car was open, as was the front door to the house, and there was no sign of the dog. Proceeding into the entry, he found an even bigger mess. A lamp had been knocked over, and the throw rug was wadded against one wall. In the front room was the TV, loudly blaring a cartoon channel, and the family room was strewn with toys and various items of clothing. In the kitchen, dishes filled the sink, breakfast food was spilled on the counter, the fridge door was wide open, dog food was spilled on the floor, a broken glass lay under the table, and a small pile of sand was spread by the back door. Quickly headed upstairs, stepping over toys and more piles of clothes, looking for his wife. He was worried she may be ill, or that something serious had happened. He was met with a small trickle of water as it made its way out the bathroom door. As he peered inside, he found wet towels, scummy soap, and more toys strewn over the floor. Miles of toilet paper lay in a heap, and toothpaste had been smeared over the mirror and walls. As he rushed into the bedroom, he found his wife still curled up in the bed in her pajamas, reading a novel. He looked up at him and smiled and asked, no, sorry, hang on. She looked up at him and smiled and asked how his day went. And he looked bewildered and asked, what happened here today? And she again smiled and answered, you know, every day when you come home from work and you ask me what in the world I did all day? Yes, was his incredulous reply. She answered, well, today I didn't do it. Oh, I love that. Anyway, because I don't think we realize as mothers what we do every day. And I think we have to kind of say, Great job. You are amazing, Mom. You are amazing. Be good to yourself. Be good to other mothers. And let's, continue on this journey of excavating these shadow aspects that have been hidden in this suppression of the feminine and the suppression of the value of, being a woman and a mother, regardless of gender. I mean, we have a lot of men that are mothers too. Mothering is a verb. It means to nurture and to care for, or nurturing, caring for. And, I think we all need a little bit of that right now, however we get it. Finding other mothers in our lives, people, and even, our pets can be our other mothers, our favorite books, being in nature, Mother Nature, going on a hike and hugging a tree, anything that we can do for ourselves and stop the mom shaming yourself and shaming others. Let's bring more love into it. All right. Happy Mother's Day. Thanks for joining me. And check out the Moms in Real Life on my website, pattiashley.com, PATTIASHLEY. And yeah, stay tuned for the launch of the Authentic Mothering Workbook and course in the fall. All right. Happy spring. Happy Mother's Day.